Hi everyone, welcome to the TheCoinRepublic's podcast. Today I am present at Token 2049 Singapore 2024 edition with a really special guest. I have Greg Osuri. He's the CEO of Overclock Labs, the creator of Akash Network, and he's been in the space for more than 25 years. He's been in the open source development space, and Akash is a distributed peer-to-peer marketplace for cloud compute. Previously, Greg founded Angel Hack, the world's largest hackathon organization with over 200K developers across the globe. Greg, what really inspired you to create Akash Network? Can you also tell us the story behind the name that is Akash?
Of course. So I've been doing open source development for about 15 years, programming for about 25 years. I was doing quite a lot of work in cloud native infrastructure code, and I've written some libraries that got extremely popular in the container infrastructure arena, particularly in this toolchain called Kubernetes and Docker.
Yeah.
Some of my contributions are still very active in applications like Amazon Web Services or Docker. Some of the Department of Defense, applications. Nvidia itself uses a lot of my source code, right? So my background is cloud infrastructure, cloud native, open source development. Before Akash, I founded a company called Angel Hack. Angel Hack was responsible for defining the modern day hackathon.
Right.
So the reason why you have hackathons today is because of Angel Hack.
Oh wow.
So it was very popular. At Angel Hack, there were several companies that were launched. I think the most successful company that launched Angel Hack was Firebase.
All right.
So Firebase eventually got acquired by Google, became Google Cloud Database. And so Angel Hack was responsible for kickstarting or accelerating Web 2.
Right.
So back in 2013 timeframe. And that's where I had access to about 200,000 developers across 50 cities. And a common problem across these developers tend to be, you come to a hackathon, you build an application, you deploy that, and you get your first early set of users.
Right.
But now you got to go back and make it available for larger audiences,
Absolutely.
right? So the process of scaling from a simple setup to larger setup tend to be extremely complicated.
Right.
Because the comfort that you get with hackathon type tools is not extended to scale.
Absolutely.
So you either have to choose scale or comfort, and that's a problem we thought could be solved using these new technologies back then called container native technologies. Docker is a very popular application, so I did quite a lot of contributions there. And as we were, as we were deploying a lot of these solutions to different data centers across the world, we realized most compute is underutilized. Somewhere north of 85% to 90% of the time, data centers have underutilized compute, unused compute, because you need peak capacity to address peak workload. So by definition, you have non-peak hours, which most of the time just sit idle. So while you have this scenario on one hand, on the other hand, you have this ascension of the cloud, the cloud infrastructure. Amazon, Google of the world are effectively creating these incredible moats with massive computational power being concentrated in few companies, right? And that leads to a few inefficiencies.
Yeah.
The number one inefficiency was cost.
Yeah, absolutely.
High margin, high growth organization within a larger organization, for profit, they're obviously going to optimize for margin.
Absolutely.
So while we have this massive underutilization, you have massive high margin business, and something didn't quite make sense, right? And the pain was being felt across the board, both in academia as well as industry. And there were quite a lot of effort to understand this problem better and really solve this problem. I think the most advanced effort back then was done by Cornell. They wrote a paper called Supercloud. The idea of a supercloud is if we can cluster any cloud-capable compute into this larger supercompute, like a supercloud compute, we can effectively be in a position to leverage underutilized resources. So that was the premise, and we thought that idea was incredible. We added a marketplace component to which where the users can effectively, or people that have compute, can offer that in a competitive marketplace where users that can access this compute can get access to them. And that was the birth of Akash Network. And Akash, like the name suggests, in Hindi, means the sky.
Right.
Akash Network means the network of clouds. That's where the name comes from. But if you also put Akash Net and can translate that in English, it becomes Skynet.
Oh, right,
so
of course.
what happens when you have an unstoppable layer of compute that intelligent beings can use to self-train and self-replicate in the future? I'll leave that up to your imagination.
Right.
So that's Skynet for you.
Absolutely. So how's Akash exactly using all this idle storage and making use of it? How is it beneficial for the user end?
Yeah, so Akash is not storage alone, it is compute.
Compute,
so compute, both CPU compute as well as accelerated compute.
Understood.
CPU, right? So today, it's very hard to get GPUs, especially high-density GPUs that are idle for machine learning. Right? Because the demand outstrips the supply to a degree that it's nearly impossible, even for the people with the most wealth. I mean, Elon Musk is famously known for saying how hard it is to get GPUs for him, being the richest man in the world. And he said something in the lines of, GPUs are harder to get than drugs, even though that's a low bar in San Francisco.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure.
He's famous for, like, Larry Ellison was last week talking about how he had dinner with Jensen Huang, the CEO of Nvidia, and literally begging him to take money to give GPUs, and Jensen wouldn't give because they just don't have them, right? But there are companies that bought a lot of GPUs, either for crypto mining or either for machine learning, and are between different machine learning runs, but have a lot of idle capacity because they're not using those GPUs all the time. And they bought them because you need GPUs when you need them, and you don't, and the need may be inconsistent, right? So there are a lot of GPUs, and talk about gaming consoles in our homes, right? There is, my gaming console, I use them once a day. There's enormous compute in our devices that are just distributed everywhere, right? So that's why we need a system that can take advantage of this distributed compute and bring them in a federated manner. That's what Akash does. The clear benefit is obviously access, right? Akash now is the best place to get on-demand access to GPUs, be it H100s and H100s. And second obvious benefit is the cost, right? So Akash now costs 80% cheaper than Amazon, Google, and Microsoft of the world, which is a big deal for a lot of folks that are cost sensitive, happens to be more people. Right?
Absolutely.
And third and most important thing is it does all of that in a transparent and a permissionless manner. So in a world where we have heavy censorship, having a layer that is considered to be the public utility, right? Compute should be as free as the air we breathe and water we drink. And that is a foundation that humanity can accelerate. And that foundation needs to be permissionless, and that's what Akash is founded on.
Absolutely. You guys recently acquired CloudMoz. If you can speak a little bit about what CloudMoz is and what sort of partnerships is Akash seeking? Are there any interesting partnerships or collaborations that we should be expecting from Akash Network in the coming few months or so?
Yeah. So Akash is a decentralized network. It's not a company, but it's a community of contributors. There are about 500 contributors across the world, right? So a lot of times, the primary contributor of Akash Network is Overclock Labs, which I'm the CEO of. And Overclock employs about 25 people out of the 500 people that work on Akash Network. So Akash is a massive community of contributors. This is incredible, right? So a lot of times you'll have companies within this community that get created to solve one problem that the core team hasn't solved or it requires a company to solve, right? So CloudMoz happened to be one of the tools, clients that was the primary client for Akash, and that happened to get the community love. And we all love CloudMoz, we all use CloudMoz. And the time came where they were trying to figure out what the future for them looks like.
Of course.
Because it's an open source tool, and they wanted to go closed source and build a commercial business on top of it. we felt it's better if they remain open source and be part of a bigger team, so we have more shared effort to be able to, that we can all share and prosper from. So that's why Overclock Labs, we acquired CloudMos. We also acquired Praetor, another similar app. Praetor helps companies to supply onto Akash from a provider standpoint. Our biggest partnership so far, or integration rather, I famously am known to not like the word partnership because it is a decentralized network and it's not an organization, but we have integrated, Akash is integrated into Nvidia.
Right.
I mean, Akash is the only protocol, only crypto protocol that's integrated into Nvidia products.
Nvidia, absolutely.
Right? So even though we don't position ourselves as crypto protocol because Nvidia looks at us as a compute network, which is beneficial for their users, and obviously they see the value in it. And we have several other integrations, another big integration being Prime Intellect, which is very exciting because they make distributed training possible on decentralized compute, and them integrating Akash is an incredible, validation for the product. Another product I use a lot is called Venice AI.
All right.
It's a privacy-optimized chat GPT that works on open source models, and they're deeply integrated into Akash. It's founded by a gentleman called Eric Voorhees, who's a very popular crypto leader and a very prominent person, and him choosing Akash to build Venice, which is a very important layer for privacy on AI, is a remarkable integration for us. In upcoming integrations we have is really with NodeShift, which is an amazing company. NodeShift is famously known for bringing SMBs into crypto, so their whole focus is not large enterprises, but not small companies, but mid enterprises that do quite a lot of spend and helping them to leverage Akash in an easy and in a manner that works for these companies, right? So that's a big integration coming up. That's coming up. So we try to target at least one integration a month, and that
makes sense.
Happens to be our biggest demand drivers.
Wow. You guys have a few incentive programs running. I think one's a 5 million incentive program. What do you guys aim to achieve off of these, and how is this sort of motivating developers to either come on to Akash or just do better in their space?
Yeah, we have several incentive programs, right? So Akash, like I said, it's a community of contributors that come together and contribute. But like open source software, most contributions come because these contributors want to provide their free time to do contributions, but free time is not always the ideal. We want people to be involved in a more full-time capacity, right? So that's why having a mechanism for them to sustain themselves while contributing to Akash was critical. So we have a public goods fund that actually funds different ideas. So if you want to come build on Akash, you can go and make a proposal into this public goods fund, get funded for that initiative, and actually build it on Akash. And we have about $30 million, in fact, on that public goods fund. And we have a provider incentive program. What that is Akash right now, all the providers are organic in the sense there's no additional incentives for providers to supply on Akash. The only incentive is your machine gets used if there is value for your machine, right? That is great, but that gives another problem where providers reclaim resources because they may not get consistent demand, right? So we wanted to make sure that there's consistent demand, or there's an incentive to keep your compute online without a consistent demand. That's where the provider incentive program comes, and the first program was 5 million. It was widely successful. We were able to attract, I believe, up to close to 300 H100s, which is the advanced H100 chip, which is very much high demand, obviously now available on Akash. So the program was so successful, we'll be introducing a new incentive program. I think it's going to be a $10 million incentive program for providers. So anyone that has H100s, A100s, A6000s can apply to this program and get incentivized. So we'll be announcing very soon, hopefully before the interview, or if not, here's your alpha. That's
absolutely, absolutely. Now, you've allowed a lot of developers to create open source DApps on the platform. What sort of interesting DApps are coming up, and are there any particular applications that might see a lot of user interest in the coming few years?
Yeah, so I think the biggest app with the most amount of users on Akash is Venice.
Okay.
Venice is phenomenal. I mean, I think it works really well. I myself use Venice on a daily basis. What I like about Venice is it's private, right? Compared to something like ChatGPT, which is not private.
Right.
If you give any information to ChatGPT, there's an open AI engineer that has access to all your prompts.
Right.
And that's not ideal, especially if you want to send it sensitive data.
sense.
Personal story, I was recently diagnosed, for a condition, and I had, I couldn't have enough time to ask the doctor in the hospital all the questions that I had, and I wanted some help in understanding the diagnosis because it's very technical and I don't understand most of it, right? So my choice was to use AI, but I would never upload my medical data on
ChatGPT,
because I have no idea how it's going to be
Exactly.
used. So instead of ChatGPT, I went to Venice AI. I uploaded my diagnosis. I asked it all the questions to my heart's full, and it answered incredibly well with such depth and such clarity that I was able to actually sleep that night. Right? So I could further take the answers that Venice gave me and put that and ask my doctor. And my doctor was pretty impressed with the kind of knowledge that I had.
Wow.
But without Venice being built on Akash, that's
sense.
not possible, right? And same thing with in recent, I have a child, a newborn at home, 6 months old, and I have a lot of questions about the child, right? I can ask ChatGPT, but I'm not comfortable sharing my personal life for some reason, for someone knowing that there's someone on the other side that's reading my stuff. That's just not okay, right?
Sense. Absolutely.
So I have a lot of questions about like gun laws or whatever. Something, there's nothing wrong with guns and being in America, you could say it's a constitution, right? But you can be profiled easily just because you're searching for guns, right? There are a lot of these people tend to behave differently when they know they have privacy versus when they don't have privacy.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
That's why it's important to have privacy optimized AI, and that's why Venice is incredible. And that's by far my favorite applications. I'm not amazing applications like Osmosis and a lot of DeFi and deep applications, but I think like AI for some reason that I use a lot happen to be my favorite application.
Makes sense. Of course, what Akash is doing does promote a lot of sustainability. Was that the goal from the beginning, and how are you guys sort of promoting the sustainable development goals?
Yeah. So that was one of the big reasons, right? So because when you build hyperscale data centers, these data centers are massive. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of megawatts of capacity to power these data centers, and when they purchase compute, they're purchasing new compute. That means new, demand for the raw materials. There's new set of carbon emission that's happening, right? So where Akash is really looking forward to is leveraging existing compute without needing new resources. I think by definition, Akash is sustainable, right? Because it's looking back at utilizing what's already out there before asking for new compute. I'm not saying that's going to be the only case. You're going to need new compute, especially with the advent of AI. The need for electricity and compute, I don't think we'll be able to even fulfill with solar or any of the sustainable methods. I think we're going to have to go nuclear for powering AI. But that's also another opportunity, like what we want to build, how we want to build the future. There's a clear need for incredible amount of energy for AI. There's a clear need for new data centers that are being formed up, and I think decentralized technologies have the best bet at making sure these are sustainable and a lot more energy efficient and environmentally friendly.
Makes sense. How the next 5 years looking like for Akash Network? What's your vision?
So right now we have product market fit. It's incredible, with millions in revenue and whatnot, which is great, right? So product market fit obviously is very challenging to get in decentralized applications, but now is growth for us, right? So we're in a growth stage. We are growing. In fact, we had a 50% growth quarter over quarter from last quarter in terms of leases created on chain, which is incredible, but we want to 10x that growth, obviously, right? I want to 10x that growth maybe in the next year.
Makes sense.
In the next 5 years, however, the goal is to get parity with the current cloud. So current cloud is a lot more capable than Akash. That's the reality. I mean, Akash is not fully built yet. It's not as capable as compute or as Amazon. And our number one goal is to get parity.
Right.
So what that looks like is transitioning Akash, which happens to be a resource network. Resources in the sense compute, storage, bandwidth, IP addresses,
Right.
and these are resources that you need to put together and use, and that is
Absolutely.
challenging, right?
Absolutely.
But the real meat in the cloud is when you have managed services.
Yeah.
So Akash will transition from a resource network to a services network,
Wow.
where you have hundreds, if not thousands, of services, all offered in a decentralized manner, in a true fashion for Akash. It'll have a core marketplace component where you can have the best possible offering, right?
Interesting.
And that will compete with the cloud in a significant, in a bigger playing
Yeah.
field. But also, after we reach parity, the innovation we get that gets created is beyond our imagination.
Absolutely.
Like, the question I'll leave you folks with is, what happens when you have thousands of regions
Right.
that are spread across the world with thousands of services one can leverage?
Right.
Comparing to Amazon, Amazon has 32 regions. Akash right now has 65 regions. But imagine that as 1,000 regional cloud, right? Right. So that's really where we're going in the next 5 years.
Makes sense. That has been an amazing chat, and it's been rather insightful to talk to you, Greg, and it's been our pleasure at TheCoinRepublic to interview Akash Network CEO, Greg. Thank you so much for joining us. It was rather interesting.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.